Honorable Speaker, one of the issues that we agreed should be referred to the two principals is the matter of the Cherera 4. The 4 IEBC commissioners that differed in opinion with the other three. It was in the wisdom of the committee that matter be referred to the two principals to perhaps pursue a settlement outside the court process. We also agreed that on the matter of violence, including violence against the public by the police and police killings, be referred to the principals with a view to forming a system, to establishing a system of undertaking thorough investigations and holding whoever is responsible.
1 minute.
So, Honorable Speaker, in a nutshell, as I conclude, given that the document we are discussing today, the NADCO report, is a negotiated document, is a consensus document, our understanding and our position is that such a document is not open to any form of amendment. And that principle also applies equally to the attendant instruments, that is the proposed legislative amendments to statutes and the Constitution. So with those very many remarks, I second and I urge my colleagues to adopt this report in totality and to allow the country to move forward in one accord. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Minority Leader. I now propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the National Dialogue Committee laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 7th December 2023. Karoli Omondi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I did have opportunity to make both a personal presentation to this committee as well as a group presentation by 27 other honorable members of Parliament. I would like to talk about 3 things. I've gone through it, and I must thank the committee for at least recording and acknowledging our presentation as 27 members of Parliament who called for the creation of 10 additional counties based on the original Kilifi draft and other instruments that preceded the enactment of the 2010 Constitution. However, I've noted that there are several glaring misrepresentations of what the position of the Constitution is in relation to the way new counties are established. You will agree, Honorable Speaker, that the IEBC has completely no role in the review and delimitation of county boundaries. This is preserved for this National Assembly under Article 188, whereby a resolution we can establish a commission that will investigate the boundaries based on a criteria which is in the Constitution and establish new counties. I've realized when I've read the report where they're making a statement under paragraph 201, and I believe it is FGHI, that the establishment of new counties require a referendum because such an act would interfere with the territory of Kenya. Nothing would be further from the truth. I've looked at Articles 5 and 6 of the Constitution, which clearly define what the territory of Kenya is, and territory of a country is defined by reference to external boundaries in terms of the neighboring countries, never by what the boundaries are within the county, which is where the boundaries for counties are. I think it would be wrong to adopt the report without any amendment when such a glaring misrepresentation is in the report, which that is not what the law says. Yes, they are saying we also need a referendum, which is not the correct position. A referendum is clearly defined under Articles 255 and 256. And you only go to a referendum when you're dealing with counties if you want to change the objects, principles, and structure of devolved units. creating new counties do not interfere with objects under Article 174, principles under 175, and the structure under 176. Structure is simply that a county government will have a county executive and a county assembly. There's no other structure. So it is wrong. I think we need to amend some of these resolutions here and then, have accuracy in the report. So even though it is a product of negotiated settlement, we cannot allow it just to go with such misrepresentations. Secondly, I did make a presentation on party discipline as well as registration of new political parties. My presentation has not been covered here, and I would like it to go on record that, again, if you read the chapters on this report on party discipline, there is a lot of confusion, whether we are a presidential system, a parliamentary system, and if we are a parliamentary system, which one are we? What is being presented here is a situation where elections are elections of political parties, not of individuals who are elected by individual mandate from the people. We should look at what happens in pure presidential systems, which is a system of governance that we have in this country, and adopt mechanisms that encourage party discipline within a presidential system. We cannot be importing parliamentary systems, practices and norms of parliamentary systems into a presidential system without understanding what they are. What I'm trying to say is, in a parliamentary system, if you are elected as an individual in that party, there are certain freedoms and independence that you enjoy. If the party is elected and the party nominates you on the basis, like in South Africa, there are certain limitations that you have. In a presidential system, you have a direct mandate from the people. You have a voice to vote as you wish in this house, only taking account of the interests of your people. That is what happens in America. That is what happens in all other jurisdictions with the presidential system. And that is where we should go. Finally, I did propose, because of the bad manners of many people in the Republic of Kenya and the problems that we are having, that it is essential to institute what I call nationhood science, so as to promote the values and principles under Article 10. I've not seen it captured here. I want it to go in the record of this House that I feel very strongly that we need to introduce civic education, entrepreneurship, and other things that will inculcate the national values and principles under Article 10 of the Constitution in our young before they get spoiled, rotten, and mess up our country. With those remarks, I will be moving some amendments on the recommendations of the report. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Next chance to the member for Marsabit, Honorable Wako.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important debate on NADCO report, as I also take this opportunity to congratulate the committee members who sacrificed a lot of their time and came up with this report that will guide our nation into a better nation. Honorable Speaker, the time they spent and the memorandums they have received from different Kenyans, and when the majority leader was moving, he said that 60 stakeholders appeared before the committee, which means that Kenyans took a lot of interest in this and they participated fully. Again, the majority leader told us that out of their report, 9 legislation proposals have been developed, which clearly shows us that they have given a lot of attention, and the legislative proposals will of course capture the needs of this country and will guide us, as I said, into a better nation. IBC, the issue of IBC seems to have been given a lot of attention, and reconstituting IBC, of course, is a major thing today. We are going to second year after elections, and we have a lot of gaps since we did our last elections. We need IBC members to come in and IBC Commission to start off their work so that we prepare ourselves, we take care of the past mess, and also make sure that we have filled the gaps. There are many MCS, many members of parliament who have gone to be with the Lord. And now, if we constitute, then we will get on to work, and I recommend that the earlier we do, the better for our nation. Again, Madam Speaker, one encouraging thing that the majority leader said is that this House, this August House, has the mandate to extend the time in case we need, because the panel is to complete their work within 90 days. But if that is not achievable, then we have the mandate to add more days so that they can conclude. But it is my prayer that we will conclude this matter as soon as possible so that Kenyans will have the services that they need. Madam Speaker, the issue of delimitation of the boundaries is of interest to many of us, and we know that that time is also coming to an end. It is my prayer that we will come up with some proposals that will help us, because many counties, many wards, many areas have been suffering because of this challenge that we've had, and the earlier we also embark on this so that we can mark the boundaries so that people can coexist and also know their areas, that will also help our nation. One important thing they have covered is the issue of Ward Development Fund, which is a big encouragement to all our MCS, because as they sit and wait, once we approve this, then the MCS will be able to do their work freely without any challenge, without, placing the governor or the county executive. They'll be able to be empowered, because as of now, many of them are not able to do what they want to do in their counties, because they do not have these funds. And what I want to say on this is, even for the MCS, when these funds will be released and will be established, and of course implementation takes place, they should be accountable and they should have enough public participation so that the counties, the wards can benefit, and the people who elected them can also feel the power. And with those few remarks, I support, and it is my prayer that we will all participate in this debate. Thank you.
Honorable John Mbadi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I support this report, I want to mention a few things. Number one is for there to be a discussion or dialogue of this nature. Certainly it had to be preceded by some kind of or form of crisis. We had a crisis, as has been ably talked about by our minority leader. But Madam Speaker, we need to ask ourselves this question. I've been around here from 15th of January 2008. I've actually been in this chamber for more than 16 years. And every time from that time of the 10th Parliament, when we had post-election violence, we keep on using the same words, same terminologies as both leaders today used. That never again will this country experience the kind of violence. I mean, this is becoming rhetoric, Madam Speaker, and I want to say that as a country we must ask ourselves fundamental questions. Why is it that after every election we always have a crisis in this country? That is the question that we need to address. But looking at this report, I'm afraid to say that we still fear. We still gloss over issues. We have not addressed the main issue, the biggest problem, the challenge that we are facing as a country. It is about the system of government. Madam Speaker, some people call it winner takes it all. Some other people call it the feeling and the sense of exclusivity and inclusivity. Why do some Kenyans feel belonging to this country more than others, especially when elections are conducted? We need to ask ourselves that question. And looking at this report, Madam Speaker, we are not solving this problem. If we have decided that this system of government, the presidential system, is not working for us, then why don't we go the full hog and go parliamentary system? Why are we again creating systems that are very difficult to understand? that you are creating an office of the opposition leader when you have a presidential system? How does it work? I mean, let us not pretend and cheat ourselves and lie to ourselves that we are solving this problem. We are not. And I am afraid to say that next time, again, after 5 years, we will be back to the same discussions. Madam Speaker, on the issue of electoral management and the team tasked with the responsibility to manage our election, Madam Speaker, the truth is that in this country, nobody is neutral. None of us. All of us vote, at least those who want to vote. Even those bishops, you give them a vote, they will vote for someone. So why do we pretend? And we know we are in a divided society. This country is almost split 50-50. For us to have confidence in the Electoral Commission, let us bite the bullet and say, those who are in the majority, bring this number of commissioners. Those who are in the minority, bring this number of commissioners to preside over election. And see where do we get the chairman. We can even appeal to our brothers. Let us not talk about sovereignty if we cannot manage it. Let us accept and even ask our partners, our friends across the continent, give us somebody. If Obasanjo can come all the way from Nigeria to come and mediate, we had Kofi Annan coming here to mediate. Why don't we just accept that because we can't trust any one of us to chair our commission and produce a good result, then let's go that route and have someone from out there to preside over election. Finally, Madam Speaker, if you allow me, on the issue of cost of living, my friend, those are opinions. Wait for your time. Who can help this member of parliament? Now, my last comment, Madam Speaker, if you allow me, is on the cost of living. Madam Speaker, let us not pretend and cheat ourselves that cost of living has gone down. It is only food-driven inflation which has gone down, and that is because we have had good rains. Madam Speaker, it has nothing to do with inputs. If rains fail in this country even for one season, we will go back to where we were. All the time when we had good rains in this country, Madam Speaker, we have had good harvest, and the cost of food generally go down. Honorable Baya has no point. There's no point of order. Madam Speaker.
You know, I want to speak on
Honorable
that.
I know there is no point of order.
Take your seat. Honorable Owen is on a point of order.
Point of order on relevance and truthfulness of information. You know, when John Badi stands, a ranking member, and says that cost of life has not gone down, I would like him to think like an economist, not as an accountant. You know, Honorable Speaker, you know, John Badi needs to know that when the dollar goes down, you know, the cost of production, the cost of export and import, all these go down. When they go down, they translate to money, real money that goes into the pockets of the people. When they go into the pockets of the people, it means they have more money.
Order, Honorable Owen Baya. That sounds like information. Honorable Badi, complete.
First of all,
what is out of order? There is no one on the floor. Honorable Roko, nobody is out of order. Honorable Badi, please conclude.
As I conclude, you know, when you hear the deputy leader of majority talk about the dollar going, what do you really mean? So talk about things that make sense. Which dollar is going down and which shilling is going up? You know, relevance, I am very relevant. I was talking about the NADCO report. It is Honorable Owen Baya who has brought dollar, which is not in this report. But let me conclude, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, cost of living has not gone down. It will not go down with the way this government is managing our economy. It will not go down. I am telling you, let rains fail even for one season. We will be worse off than even we were last year. So let us not cheat ourselves. Let us address the issue of cost of living with clear minds, professionalism. Let us bring technical people, people who understand how systems work, not academics like David D. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Next chance to the member for Tigania West, Honorable John Mutunga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to pick it up from where Honorable Bandi has left. Honorable Speaker, if we negotiated from the beginning, we will never get to where we were. What has been happening in this country after a stiff political competition, we continue with political competition, even in this House. Honourable Speaker, I think the spirit of the NADCO was a good spirit that we need to emulate. Honourable Speaker, if we also stuck to speaking the truth and telling Kenyans the truth, as guided by Article 35, subsection 2 of the Constitution, I think we would take this nation very far. Honourable Speaker, sometimes you can hear a member say that the housing levy or the affordable housing program is not benefiting people in Azimio. Today, the Honorable Karoli Omondi confirmed that the first phase of the affordable housing has already kicked off or completed in his constituency. It is very unfortunate that some members can say it is only happening in the in the constituency where the government is represented. That is not true. Let us stick to the truth and let us stop telling Kenyans lies. Honourable Speaker, having said that, let me thank the committee for the good work that they have done. Honourable Speaker, the committee has brought out issues that needed to be scrutinized with sober minds. They brought out issues that have to do with IBC. I don't need to belabor that point, but the point of cost of living. They brought out very key proposals. Reduce the cost of travel by half. Reduce the DSA by 30%. Merge some of the institutions. These are proposals that need to be looked into. Sometimes we also overspend on things that did not matter. Creation of the office of the Prime Minister and that of the leader of opposition. I think if we had an office of the leader of opposition, we would have more organized opposition in this country. And therefore, we will not be having chaotic situations where people just emotionally get to the streets. Fast-tracking the legislative reforms that basically will harmonize the Senate and the National Assembly. We should not be taking each other to court. These are some of the things that you should have done long ago. This is one nation. One nation should be able to speak to oneself and then come up with ways of doing business. Honourable Speaker, the issue of fighting corruption has been articulated in this report. It is one of the thorny issues in this country that needs to be dealt with. And they have given clear proposals on how to do it. Entrenching NCG, National Government Constituencies Development Fund, GAF, and the Senate Oversight Fund. I will be bringing proposals on our Speaker, instead of having the One Development Fund being recognized at the legislative level, it should also be entrenched in the Constitution, so that we don't have MCAs being elected and they cannot be assisted, or we could have situations where they will not have an equal opportunity to participate in development, as it were. The amendments proposed in the IBC are very critical, and these amendments are good, Honourable Speaker, in the sense that we need to, first of all, make sure that competitiveness is embraced. We need to make sure that they also understand ICT and they also understand the issues of finance. Don't take anybody to IBC because the person is good or the person is a friend or the person is responsive to probably what you consider to be important. Honourable Speaker, there is one proposal that I want to talk to for maybe about a minute. The amendment to Article 138 of the Constitution, which will give create clarity on the role of the other members of the IMBC in terms of the pronouncement of the president when there is a contest, for instance. That needs to be done because there was so much of loose talk of the numbers when the role is clearly articulated as that of the president. Honourable Speaker, we as a country can do better if we talk to each other and not at each other. In this House, we keep on fighting instead of debating and bringing out laws that will help this country. I think NADCO is a committee that has given us the direction that we should follow even as a House. I thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I support adoption.
Thank you. Member for Moiben.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, once again for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this debate on the NADCO. I want to congratulate the committee, which took their time and spent sleepless nights to come out with this very beautiful report. And Madam Speaker, what I like about the report is that it was conceptualized and it involved the two sides of the political divide, the government and the opposition. Madam Speaker, I would also want to thank the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, for accepting that this NADCO committee be formed, having won the elections, but he decided that because the country is more important than an individual, we sit together and come up with reforms which will take Kenya to the next, which will take Kenya forward. Madam Speaker, particularly, I'm impressed about the reconstitution of the panel to deal with the IBC. Madam Speaker, this animal, this IBC, has been a thorn for a very long time, and in our elections over and over, we have had issues. I hope this time around, Madam Speaker, we will have both parties agreeing, both sides agreeing, and coming up with individuals who have the interest of Kenya. Madam Speaker, most importantly is the issue of two-thirds gender in our country. This has been a problem which has been spoken over and over, many year in, year out, and nothing has been agreed. Madam Speaker, in this report, it is very clear that this issue of two-thirds gender is going to be addressed once and for all, and I hope that going forward, we will conclude it and have everybody, both sides of the gender, represented in every institution in our country. Madam Speaker, the issue of NGCDF being entrenched in the Constitution is very important. This, the NGCDF fund is a very important element in our country. It has transformed so many lives. The funds which come from this fund, we have had schools being built, we have had courts of law being constructed. It caters for so many. And now it is even more, it's even getting better when we entrench there, when we bring the Ward Development Fund, so that we don't have the members of the county assembly being at the mercy of county governors. This is a very good way forward. And also the Senate Oversight Fund. So we'll have every institution being independent and able to carry out its duties without being, with sufficient funds. The issue of the leader of opposition and the prime cabinet being entrenched in the Constitution is also very relevant, Madam Speaker, so that every time we are done with the elections, we don't have to fight over issues. We will be having a leading the president, and we also have a leader of opposition, and it will be very important because the opposition will be able to stand alone and carry out their issues, and government also can continue, and the opposition can carry out its oversight processes in a very straightforward matter. My time is up, Madam Speaker. Thank you for giving me the opportunity on behalf of the people of Moibin.
Thank you. Member for Arieda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to support this motion for adoption of the report. In the words of Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, the report may not be perfect, but it's work in progress worth supporting, and I do support it. Madam Speaker, it is important to note two areas which I think are the most urgent. I will not cover the rest. One, it is important to note that under Article 89(2), the window we were given for reconstitution and re-examination of the boundaries of constituencies actually expires this month, the 8 to 12-year window. It is extremely important that we adopt this report and then move the necessary constitutional amendments, which I want to suggest should be the first standalone constitutional amendment, to extend this period, perhaps not so much to tie to a year, but to tie to a period. Instead of 8 to 12, we could say 10 to 17. We will have resolved the mischief that the report is trying to resolve without getting into the quagmire that we might be if we try to do this thing before the next election. Secondly, is the audit of the 2022 general elections. Most people fear this because they think we'll be re-examining and revisiting the declaration of results and who won and who did not win. Far from it. Article 81(2) of our Constitution is very clear. Every election, and it's not just for the president, every election must be transparent, it must be accountable, it must be efficient. And those three words ought to be demonstrated at any time any Kenyan wants to see how it was done. It will bring settlement, not just for the past, but for the future, in terms of the elections when we are moving this way. Now, I know that this kind of report requires goodwill. For us to move forward, we will require that goodwill. I am not quite sure why we've taken 4 months since 25th of November to even table this report here. I do not know whether that is consistent with goodwill. But I do know, having been in the first process, that we were beleaguered by absence of goodwill at certain stages. I want to really urge that if we are to go this way, there must be goodwill. I want to say that contrary to what some people think, this report is actually not inconsistent with the judgment that was issued by the High Court just a fortnight ago. Indeed, in that judgment, the judge correctly observed that issues like constitution of the panel is a political question that should be left to politicians under the political doctrines question. But the judge found it necessary to come to that judgment because the process was delaying. Had we started this immediately the report was out, we'd probably have forestalled that kind of decision. But there's nothing lost because the judge is saying, do this within 90 days. The report is recommending, let us do it within 90 days. It is possible for those 90 days to coincide if there's goodwill. Even if we didn't, if there was goodwill, it is possible for the two principals who initiated the process to have a situation where there's consensus and discussion in terms of the names that will be recommended, so that when the names come here for the IBC commissioners, we do not end up in voting and confrontation as sometimes we are given to. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I want to say that there are areas that will require more careful navigation. It is not to say we don't adopt the report. As we adopt it, we will require more careful navigation. One of them is whether we require a referendum. My casual glance of the report suggests we will in 4 different areas. The second one is this thing of recommending a Senate of 7 years. That will require us to really re-examine a number of things. The third one is the idea of a staggered election. There's a host of reasons why the general election is held on the same day. And if we are to interfere with it, we have to navigate very carefully. Lastly, Madam Speaker, is the question of the leader of opposition and the office of the Chief Prime Cabinet Secretary. We will have to re-examine our structure of government because the report does not go that far. It does not say whether these officers are to be in this house and what role they are to play. That is left for us. So, Madam Speaker, I support with the caution that we need to start thinking more in terms of giving intention to the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Member for Sigowet Soin, Honorable Justice.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important report. First and foremost, Madam Speaker, I want to record that I'm in support of the report. I'm in support of the report, Madam Speaker, because when we are given the 9 legislative proposals, we should be in a position to cure at least 2 or 3 major issues that have always brought contention and polarization in this country. The one that comes to mind, Madam Speaker, is electoral justice. When shall we have it right in this country so that when our people go to elections, Madam Speaker, we do not resort to any other means to have our grievances sorted out apart from what is provided in the Constitution? Madam Speaker, I don't want to speak to all the issues. I want to single out 3 issues which I'll speak to. Madam Speaker, IEBC is an institution that we have constantly created and recreated in this country. But it has never provided us with the confidence that when we do elections, the elections are truly reliable and elections which represent the interest of the people. Madam Speaker, even we do create another IEBC, and the systems, the structures, and the people in that institution do not do what is right, Madam Speaker, this will be an exercise in futility. I want, Madam Speaker, that when those legislative proposals are brought, we look critically at the structure of IEBC, and we look critically at the systems in IEBC. Let us also look at the methodologies of doing elections in this country. And finally, Madam Speaker, we must have people of ethical high ground manning IEBC. Madam Speaker, I'm opposed to this idea where the principals are given the honors to select members of the panel that will be leading us in the formation of IEBC. Let us, Madam Speaker, agree on who will be in the panel. And let's leave that to people who can be able to give us the right men and right women to man IEBC. Madam Speaker, when I speak on this issue of World Development Fund, it reminds me of the belief of President Moi, the late President Moi, a long time ago, when he brought the idea of district focus for rural development. Madam Speaker, that was a system of devolution. And in the system of devolution, we want to decentralize as much as possible. And when we bring in the Constitution, the NGCDF, and also the World Development Fund, Madam Speaker, we are giving greater responsibility in the management of our resources to the lowest level possible. That I support, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, finally, I want to speak on the issue of corruption in this country. We lose so much money because of corruption. In some quarters, Madam Speaker, we are told we lose in this country up to 800 billion shillings a year through corruption. Madam Speaker, that dragon which has taken us back in our country, we must slay it once and for all. We are looking forward to the legislative proposal that will kill this dragon called corruption in this country, so that the resources that we generate go for the work that is indeed beneficial to the people of our country. Madam Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to support the report and look forward to the legislative proposals that will give effect to this report. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Kirinyaga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the NADCO report. Madam Speaker, the rationale behind it was so that we can have a conversation on the way forward in regard to pertinent matters that concern all of us collectively, devoid of party position and ideologies. Madam Speaker, I have skimmed through the report and a few issues piqued my interest. Madam Speaker, the first issue is the entrenchment of the World Development Fund. Madam Speaker, it is about time that we ensure we give legitimacy to the office
of the county assembly members, Madam Speaker, so that they can also have some sort of independence from the executive, Madam Speaker. We have seen oftentimes, Madam Speaker, a push and pull even in divide of resources. And most of the MCAs who sometimes find themselves on the wrong side in terms of being in good books with the executive at the county level find that they're not able to launch any projects for their people, Honorable Speaker. Madam Speaker, these are people who have been elected by their various representatives to ensure that they cater and represent for their interests, Honorable Speaker. Madam Speaker, the 2/3 gender rule is of concern to me. And it is worth noting that the leader of minority has pronounced himself that anything that will be discussed by the multi-sectoral working group in regard to the 2/3 gender rule and any recommendations in regard to the same will be adopted as part of the NADCO report. Madam Speaker, one of the issues that the NADCO report was supposed, rather the committee was supposed to resolve, is the issue of giving effect to the 2/3 gender rule. Madam Speaker, only this House has the authority through Article 27(8) of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 to ensure that we have provided for legislation for giving effect of the 2/3 gender rule. Madam Speaker, of course, we have had discussions back and forth about how to implement the same, and it can only enable to enrich the conversation and ensure that what is brought forth on this floor is something that will be looking to ensure that it caters also for the interest of the Kenyan people in terms of representation. Madam Speaker, I'm also alive to the recommendations to extend the time for delimitation of boundaries. We all know that this was coming up and that the time was lapsing due to the issues at hand, and given the fact that we do not have an IBC, the IBC commissioners, I can see my colleague nodding in agreement. You can see that the report is really a consensus on all sides of the divide. Madam Speaker, it is important to note that the extension of time will allow for a proper review of the boundaries so that we can see whether this House can protect the constituencies that had been protected in the law that is lapsing. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I also note that the Election Offences Amendment Bill is proposing to introduce an offense for any officer who conducts or holds an election in an ungazetted polling station or center. Madam Speaker, I wish to support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Mombasa.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi niweze kutoa sauti yangu katika ripoti hii ambayo imetolea uwiano. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza mimi nataka kupongeza, na nimeona wengi walitoa matakwa yao mengi sana kuhusu zile pesa ambazo zinafaa ziende katika wale MCS wetu, na ni dhahiri kuwa Mheshimiwa Spika, MCS wetu wamekuwa wakihangaika sana. Tunaona wengine wanapewa, wengine hawapewi. Kwa hiyo ikiweza kuwekwa katika sheria kuwa ma MCS waweze kupewa pesa za kufanya miradi kule mashinani, inaweza kusaidia sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Jambo lingine ambalo nimeliangalia Mheshimiwa Spika, sijui kama litapewa kipaumbele, japokuwa katika yale maamuzi ya mwisho sikuona Mheshimiwa Spika. Walemavu siku zote wao wameachwa nyuma Mheshimiwa Spika, na ingekuwa ni vizuri kama walemavu wangekuwa pia na mgao wao wenyewe ambao wanaweza wakajipangia mambo yao bila kushughulisha watu wengine tofauti. Mheshimiwa Spika, walemavu wanahangaika na mambo mengi sana katika taifa hili Mheshimiwa Spika, na wanahitaji usaidizi, na huu usaidizi ikiwa kama waweza wakatengewa mgao wao kama walemavu, mgao wao kivyao, inaweza kusaidia sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo lingine ambalo nimeona limegusiwa, mambo ya IBC. Na tuliona mambo yalivyokuwa katika uchaguzi uliopita Mheshimiwa Spika. Ilionekana wazi kuwa 4 imeshinda 3, wakati ambapo ilikuwa ni ngumu sana kuelewa Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo ikiwa kama mambo haya yanaweza kuangaliwa vizuri yakapigwa msasa, IBC tujue hawa maafisa wa IBC wanapewa uzito gani, ili tuweze kuelewa vizuri kuwa wale 4 wale 3 walipata ushindi mkubwa kwa sababu gani kuliko wale 4 Mheshimiwa Spika. Iweze kupigwa msasa mambo haya yasiweze kurejelewa Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo lingine ambalo limegusiwa, na mimi napenda kina mama wa bunge hili tuweze kusukuma kwa pamoja, na hata dada yetu waziri Mheshimiwa Aisha Jumwa aweze kusukuma haraka mambo ya Ruto'S gender, ile ambao ni thuluthi tatu kuangalia hali ya jinsia. Mheshimiwa Spika, kina mama tunahitaji nafasi za uongozi, nafasi za kutosha kama inavyoonyesha katika katiba Mheshimiwa Spika, na ndio ningeweza kumwelezea waziri wetu Mama Aisha Jumwa aweze kuileta haraka ili iingizwe ndani, tuweze kuangalia mambo ya kina mama yanaangaliwa sawa sawa Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo lingine ambalo nimeangalia na napenda kusema, sisi kama viongozi kutoka Pwani tuliweza kulilia kamati hii kuangalia kuwa ile mipaka yetu ambayo inaweza kuingiliwa na wengine wa Garissa na sehemu zingine za Ukambani iweze kulindwa mipaka yetu ya Pwani Mheshimiwa Spika, na naona imegusiwa hapo. Natumai pia ripoti hii ikiweza kuchukuliwa kwa uzito, sehemu zetu za Pwani zitapata ulinzi na tutabaki na sehemu zetu Mheshimiwa Spika. Jambo lingine ambalo nimeliona pia tuliomba kama viongozi wa kutoka Pwani ni kuwa sisi katika zile constituencies zile zetu ambazo tunazo Mheshimiwa Spika zisiweze kupunguzwa. Manake kulikuwa na sintofahamu ama kulikuwa na tetesi kuwa tunaweza kupunguziwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, idadi yetu pia imeongezeka. Kwa hiyo sisi tunaomba badala ya kupunguza waweze kuongeza constituencies zingine katika sehemu zetu. Tutaweza kushukuru sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, wengi wamezungumza na kusema ni kwao, lakini mpaka sasa hali ya maisha, gharama ya maisha iko juu sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Tuweze kusisitiza sote ni wa Kenya, na hata tukizungumza sio kuwa tunachukiana, ni tunataka kuwa gharama ya maisha iweze kurudi chini, yule mwananchi ambaye ni mnyonge kule chini aweze naye kupata matakwa yake bila kuwa na uzito Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, unga hujashuka bei kama alivyosema mwenzangu, na tunaomba tuweze kusukuma wakulima. Na mimi naona katika mbolea waliuziwa Mheshimiwa Spika, mbolea ilikuja bure. Wakulima wapewe mbolea bure kwa sababu wanasema mazao yameongezeka. Wakipewa bure mazao yatazidi kuongezeka barabara Mheshimiwa Spika, na tutapata uchumi wetu unapanda juu vizuri Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo mimi napongeza ripoti hii. Naweza kuipongeza nikisema kama mama Mombasa, ni ripoti nzuri ambayo ikitiliwa maanani Kenya itasonga mbele kama Wakenya moja. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Thank you. Member for Buri, Honorable Mugambi.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity. From the onset, I want to take this opportunity to commend the committee and say it has given us a good foundation for onward development of our political economics in this country. But Madam Speaker, I have two issues to make. One, the matter of cost of living. Mr. Speaker, what I expected from this report is apportionment of the revenues that we correct that goes towards productivity in this country. Madam Speaker, there is the money that comes from the national government that is supposed to address the cost of living. and there is money given to the counties that also goes towards the cost of living. Madam Speaker, sectors like water, sectors like agriculture, they are all have a direct impact on the cost of living. Yet, Madam Speaker, when you're talking about the cost of living, and according to this report, all the missiles are focused on the national government, which I believe is not fair as far as the national government is concerned. And that's why I'm saying this report should have gone deeper and apportion what the two arms of government are supposed to do in terms of addressing the issue of cost of living. Madam Speaker, the cost of living is a subset of so many factors, and those two are not the only ones, because we have nature. There's no way that we can address the issue of food production without addressing the issue of the land patterns in this country. And that's where I differ with my senior, Honorable Bandi, that if the land fails, we'll go back to the story, the old story. But I want also to challenge ourselves that what the national government and the county government need to address is that when dryness comes, we need to be ready in terms of putting more money in order to generate more water so that our productivity can be kept constant. But all in all, Madam Speaker, the report is good, but let's be real. Let the movers of this discussion be real to themselves. I think it was not very good intention to bring this cost of living because it's a diverse topic which cannot really be put in paper because there are so many factors that come into play. Madam Speaker, the issue of international community, in as far as having a direct impact on what Kenya does, is also a factor that needs to be put into consideration when you're talking about the cost of living. Madam Speaker, the issue of delimitation. Madam Speaker, this report falls short of addressing the real criteria and the redefining what the constituencies wants and the counties need to follow so that they can be given the status as such. Madam Speaker, this report did not examine that because you find the only aspect that was brought marginalization. There are so many other factors I believe that this report should have addressed to go towards the delimitation. Madam Speaker, this report is a bit biased because it did not address the issue of hardship. There are so many areas in this country which are not defined in terms of hardship and which I thought that aspect should have been brought into this report. Because you find some counties, some wards, some constituencies having been given the status of hardship, while others are not given. And this goes towards the determination of the resources that will need to be put into them. Madam Speaker, the many Kenyans have lost faith in IBC because it has been leaded with a lot of problems. Madam Speaker, I need to ask ourselves, how many Kenyans vote? That's the basic question which has not been answered or asked in this report. You'll find that only an average of 60%. What goes on with the other 40%? And who addresses why they don't vote? So I thought this report will bring that aspect properly, why 40% on average of Kenyans don't vote. Because this is very important. How are their issues being addressed? Why have they lost faith in voting? Why have they lost faith in IBC?
Time is up. Honorable Jackson Kosgei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the onset, as I take the floor, I wish to support the report and congratulate the NATCO, this committee, for the work well done. As I support, allow me, Madam Speaker, to quote from a statement made by George Washington, who was a general and the first president of the United States of America in 1779 on a constitutional conference. he made a statement, and I wish to quote, "Let us raise a standard to which the wise and honest can repair. The rest is in the hands of God." We would like to take this opportunity to congratulate this committee, and more so the principals involved, His Excellency the President of our Republic, William Samoei Ruto, and the Right Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, for agreeing as a political divide to provide an opportunity for Kenyans to relook at our Constitution and look at areas that can improve several concerns of our country. One, it is important for the unity of this country. We have experienced suspicion in every election and electoral cycle. We would like to look into it and understand why Kenyans have disagreed in every election. Second is the issue of IEBC. Madam Speaker, we would like to agree that we have an electoral board or body that can be trusted by both sides in any given election. I also want to appreciate the Honorable Lady who spoke before me a few minutes ago, that it looks like the report did not speak clearly on the needs for persons with disability in this country. And I'm sure as we progress in the analytical discussion and deliberation in this House on this report, we would be able to put into it. We do not want, and as I represent the interest groups, we do not want to have persons with disability lumped up on an amorphous group called the special group. It has to come out very clear so that their issues can be addressed uniquely. I have been traveling in and out of this country for many years. And one of the experiences I have, for example, is the very insensitive nature our point of entry management is. For example, even at our JKIA International Airport, for a person living with disability and with a total dependency on assistive devices, he has to face it rough that you don't have an ambulife and the one which is there, especially when the plane is parked away from the bridge. So, Madam Speaker, this needs to be put into this report so that it can speak to the legislations in various, domiciled in various acts. Finally, it is a moment to correct certain areas that has not been satisfactory in our Constitution. So I appeal to all of us, because this is a bipartisan bill that is coming up. I think it will be easier for us to correct things that are addressing the needs of Kenyans. Yet again, Madam Speaker, I support the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I start to support the report for the committee. Madam Speaker, I wish to say that this was the best moment for this country, because I think it was one of the best decisions that was made by the principals, because this country had come from a very difficult time, from COVID, and then immediately after COVID, this was the election, and therefore we needed a sober mind, whereby we can think about the nation as our nation, but not as a divided according to our voting. Madam Speaker, I know we might think about it or resonate or discuss this report depending on our sides of support during the elections. But Madam Speaker, the most important thing that this report is there to bring Kenyans together so that we may be able to decide the way forward for this country. The election in this country is one of the most emotive, and I know out of this report, the best thing we can do is come up with a team or a system of election that we can be able to agree, all of us. Madam Speaker.
Member for Kangema.
Thank you.
Order. Member for Kangema, the next time this motion comes up, you'll have a balance of 4 minutes. And you'll have the go if you'll be in the House. You'll have the first opportunity. Order, members. Honorable members, the time being 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 21st of February 2024 at 9:30 a.m.